and welcome to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, the owner of Meraki Media Management. The End in Mind is a place where we come to share stories, tips, and strategies of many entrepreneurs, creatives, business owners, and just some people that aren't willing to live the traditional lifestyle. We talk about how to live outside of the box today and how to incorporate what really is important in your life to keep that end goal always in mind. Again, if you would like to reach out to me in any type of way, you can find me on Instagram at Meraki_media_management. And I hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks so much and enjoy our show. Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys today. I just wanted to first off say, if you haven't left us an Apple Podcast review, I want you to hit pause right now, head to Apple Podcasts. You can literally do it by Googling the End in Mind podcast, Caitlin, and it will come up and you can click on that podcast link to leave us an Apple Podcast review. And once you do so, you will be entered into a giveaway pool to win a free 90-minute sit down with me. All you have to do is leave your Instagram handle in that review and you will be entered into our giveaway poll. And then we will pick our lucky winner to do our 90-minute sit down. We send a quiz prior. We go over 3 topics of your choice, which may be problematic in your business Instagram account currently, and we will help you alleviate any of those issues. So today, I am really excited about our topic. We are getting more into the mental health, personal development, self-development side of things today, which you guys know I am super into this topic. I think this is one of the most important pieces of entrepreneurship that is not spoken about enough at all, if ever, until possibly this year. This has really been a huge trend that I've seen in 2021, and that is why I want to share it with you all. When I had coaches give me these types of tips, lifestyle tips, and things like that. I actually have a podcast episode with my coach, Jacqueline DiGregorio. If you want to go back, scroll back to our podcast episode together. Great episode. And Jacqueline used to tell me all the time when we first started working together, Caitlin, I think it's a really good idea for you to include a morning routine into your daily activities. I think it's gonna, set your day up for success and put you in a really great mindset. And to tell you guys the truth, when she would tell this to me, when she was coaching me on a month-to-month basis, I think we were actually doing week to week then. And I hated when she gave me this information. I would literally cringe. I'm one of those people that hates being told what to do. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably exactly how I am. I am an only child. I really like to think for myself, and sometimes with my coaching, I would find myself resisting the advice that my coaches would give me because I felt like for some reason they were telling me what to do instead of offering advice. So when I would feel these emotions come up as she was coaching me, in the beginning, I would just ignore her. Like, there's no way I'm ever going to have a morning routine. I like to wake up and have no clue what I'm getting into, or I like to look at my calendar the night before and, start work in the morning from my bed, from my phone. That is legitimately how I used to work. And it was very unhealthy for my mental health, but I had no clue at the time that could be what was causing so much angst for myself. And of course, Jacqueline, being my coach, saw this in me. She knew that I had this type of personality, and she would pick up on when I would have resistance. So instead of pushing me, she would help me come up with healthy daily routines or something small that I could do every day. So for me, it started really small. It started by having my greens every morning, and that was what I actually started doing first because it was a way for me to have one small thing that seemed doable, under 5 minutes for me to continue to do on a daily basis. So that was how it all started. And then once I got into therapy and I was going through a lot of my personal development shifts, which you all have been very much so a part of, especially if you follow me on Instagram, I share a lot about mental health and entrepreneurship, and I just knew that at this stage in my life, if I didn't at least give this a try, this awareness, self-help morning routine gig that everybody was talking about constantly from all directions, now it was coming from my therapist, and for some reason, that was what I needed to hear at the moment for it to push me into actually putting myself first and finding the time to make this work for myself. Because what I think is so important to mention here, when you become an entrepreneur, your minutes, your time, your seconds that you have seem scarce, especially when you are trying to scale. It feels like you have no time. The time that you do have, you want to reserve for yourself. I mean, for me, it was binge watching, Real Housewives as I was working out. Like, that was my me time. That was what I would force all into one section of the hour. Real Housewives on my phone, biking crazily for 45 minutes. And that was all I was doing for my mental health. Now, what was this doing for me personally overall? And I hope, none of these tactics that I give anyone is making them, think that you can just do this type of work and it will instantly be gone. This is what worked for me. So that's why I want to share it with you all. It was also coupled with a lot of, like I said, coaching and therapy along the way. Anyway, what I would do is I would get into these rut moments where I had no clue what self-help even was, or self-care, right? Self-care work. I didn't really understand it. So I started off with bubble baths, or I started off with a face mask, something that felt really normal and grounded for me in self-care. And then I realized that my working out 45 minutes a day while I'm watching TV, while I'm trying to, stay in shape, that was not a form of self-care for me at that time. I needed more self-care, more mental work. I think that there's something really important to be said about exercise and mental work. When I work out, I have a lot of really great breakthroughs mentally. I see how much I can challenge my body, and there's a different level to working out and mental health. However, when it came to mental health with my business, I had to give myself space to be able to have the feeling of free will again. Because what had happened to me throughout my life made me feel like I was so out of control. Past traumas, things that I've gone through in the past, our limiting beliefs that we put on ourselves. And most of the time it can even be something really small. I was listening to a podcast this morning, The School of Greatness. If you have not checked out that podcast and you're interested in this podcast, School of Greatness will be right up your alley. I mean, he's fantastic, great interviewer. And he had a gentleman on, and he shares that really, when you're talking about free will and getting into entrepreneurship and finding the time for yourself, you feel like you're in a rat race before all of that. You feel like you're in this corporate, agenda. You have the same schedule every day. You get up, you know what you're doing. And when you step into this unknown space, it's so scary. It's almost crippling. I mean, it crippled me with anxiety, and my traumas were crippling me even more. So I couldn't even get to the starting point, because every day, that thought in the back of my head is saying, well, who's going to buy from me? I have no experience yet. Or I only had one really great breakthrough experience. So who's going to buy from me again if I only have this one great experience to share with them? They want proof, right? All of these limiting beliefs come up. Our brains are very powerful, crazy things, right? We have no clue what sometimes comes out out in our brains. I mean, it's wild when you think about it. And the more aware we become of our limiting beliefs, our traumas, and do this mindset work, it allows you to have those breakthroughs. So what would happen for me when I would go through this process of the limiting beliefs, I was very fortunate that I was able to hire a coach as I was building my business to say to me, no, Caitlin, that's not actually true. That's a limiting belief. That's something that you are putting on yourself. That's something that's going to hold you back. So let's acknowledge that. Let's acknowledge where that came from with no judgment. This was the key piece for me. I realized, especially through therapy, that I was not very judgmental to the people around me, but I was judging the crap out of myself and my thoughts. I literally was judging the crap out of myself. If I made a mistake with, scheduling a post, or if I used a photo that was offset, I mean, it wasn't just a quick, I made a mistake, move on, fix it. It was beating myself up, sometimes for hours, days, about this one mistake that I made. And it would actually hold me back. It limited those thoughts, right, coming through my brain. So I could have been having really great breakthroughs, right? I could have been having really great ideas for content, maybe upcoming content. After I fixed that one problem, we're all humans, we make mistakes. But I was so stuck on making that one mistake. That was all my brain could focus on. And with this podcast with Lewis Howes, this gentleman, I'll have to find his name and I'll put it in the show notes below so you guys can check out this episode. He talks about how people and their thoughts start with questions. And I think this is a really important thing for entrepreneurs and business owners to think about. What questions are we asking ourselves? So when I would mess up on something, I'm asking myself, how angry is this client going to be at me? They're probably going to go to Yelp and write a review, or Facebook and totally trash me because I messed up this auto posting system. These are all questions I'm asking myself, right? Like, how are they going to react? That's always the question I was asking. Or how are they going to feel when I didn't perform up to a certain standard? So this is all people pleasing, right? And I started to realize it through my therapy, through my work of what I was doing to myself. And I was almost putting this limiting beliefs cell around myself. Like, I couldn't break past them unless I did this mindset work first. And he shares in this podcast as well the questions that Will Smith will ask himself. And it's something along the lines of, how can I make this moment, this miracle happening even more magical? So the question that he asks himself every day isn't, why is there no toilet paper left on the toilet paper roll and who messed up? It's, wow, how magical this experience of having no toilet paper on the toilet paper roll is for myself, because in the future, I will know to have, more toilet paper underneath the sink, right? So it's changing his emotion. That was a funny analogy. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why that popped in my head, but he's changing the problematic or the situation and the question that he's asking himself about that situation. And he's saying, how can I make it even more magical? So everything that happens to him can be, in perception, changed to, wow, this is actually such a magical experience instead of a negative experience. So these questions actually set ourselves up to create affirmations. So it was really interesting. Like I said, I may even just link the episode below so you guys can listen to it. They even go into the same form of questions that you tend to ask yourself, which I would say is definitely a form of affirmations. So you tend to ask yourself the same question over and over and over again based off of your past human experiences. Makes sense completely, right? Once you kind of think about it, it's like, oh, well, duh, when you think back, or if you've done any type of personal self-help awareness work yet, it almost always comes back to your inner child and your experiences that you've had at a young age and how that shapes who you are and how you perceive life. Well, if how we perceive life can be changed at the drop of a question, imagine how much more quickly we can shift our mindsets to help it work in our benefit. My coach Jacqueline would frequently say to me, "You are great at manifesting." And truthfully, this was something that I didn't even know that I was doing at a young age. I didn't even know that I was manifesting, but these are practices that I had in my everyday lifestyle just because I simply struggled so much with my learning disability at a young age. I felt very left out at that time in my life. I was going through a lot personally in my home, and that really affected me. The questions that I ask myself now tend to be patterns of what I would ask myself as a kid. So when I was younger and I was given in a really crap situation, let's say, for example, one time I got a detention because I stayed after school late, and I was such like a goody two-shoes. I never had gotten a detention before, and it was a Saturday detention. I stayed after school. I didn't know that was the rules, and I mean, guys, I beat myself up over this Saturday detention for years because I'm that much of a type A, right? Like I said, if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have somewhat of these same tendencies. This was actually in middle school, so I was pretty young at the time. I kept asking myself, why did I make this mistake? Oh, that was such a stupid mistake to make. How could you be so stupid? Asking myself these questions over and over again. This is internally in my head as a young girl. I had to shift out of that because I knew that I had just made a mistake, and my school just had to simply follow protocol. And it had nothing to do with who I am or who I was as a person or a student. It was just happened to be the circumstance. For some reason, I was supposed to be there on a Saturday, right? I was supposed to have this detention. And changing that question of, okay, well, how do I never let this happen again? Or how can I make this Saturday experience a good one? Right? I have friends possibly going to this Saturday detention with me, and changing that question, it's much like the Will Smith question of how can I make this experience even more magical? And that's assuming every experience is magical. So I hope that this mindset work really helps you all find what you want, because freedom is not within outside circumstances. I don't believe that. My form of freedom is by understanding the capacity that as human beings, there is no limit to what we can accomplish or what we can have or what we can do. It's really all within our brains and what our brains are able to process and accept what we actually can do. It all starts between the ears. And if we don't start to step back to keep that piece of the end in mind within our thought process as entrepreneurs, we will end up limiting ourselves before we even got started. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. I sure enjoyed sharing all of this information with you guys. We did get a little bit more in depth today, and I hope you all enjoyed it. I can't wait to hear what you think. So please leave us an Apple Podcast review. It honestly does me such a solid. It allows us to reach many more listeners. It also allows me to understand what you guys are liking. So if you don't mind leaving us a podcast review, even if you don't want to be involved in our giveaway, that's not a problem at all. The podcast reviews, like I said, just really help our show reach more people. So thank you so much, everybody, and I will talk with you next week. Thank you so much for listening to The End in Mind. I would like to remind you all, if you haven't yet reached out to me on Instagram, we are at Meraki_media_management. It will be in our show notes as well. If you would like to reach out to me, we always offer free coaching through Instagram based around our Instagram training and our business Instagram practices. If you need any type of support, please do not hesitate to reach out to me there. And we also offer offer several different types of consulting and training packages if you're looking for a little bit more in-depth tips. So thank you all for listening in, and of course, I want you all to keep the end in mind as you continue with your day and or work week. Have a great week, and I will see you all next time.
Well, I don't know. Everyone has a podcast now.
Well, not really. What is true is that, according to Nielsen statistics, 55% of the U.S. population, that's over 155 million people, have listened to a podcast, and 24% of the population, that's 68 million people, listen to podcasts weekly. And these numbers continue to trend upward.
What's also true is that over 75% of all podcasts fade away after the first few episodes. It could be for a variety of reasons: lack of strong concept, poor production value, people not realizing how much time needs to be dedicated to it, or simply just not knowing how to get the word out about podcasts. That's where WeKnowPodcasting.com comes in.
At WeKnowPodcasting.com, we have a combined 25 years of podcast experience, and we can help you achieve your podcasting goals. Whether you need help starting a new podcast or want to take your currently active podcast to the next level, we got you. From consultations to concept development, from theme music to editing, promotion, animation, graphics, you name it, and we're here to help.
Don't become another failed podcast statistic. Let us guide you and help your show become a success. Check out the website at WeKnowPodcasting.com, and even if you're on the fence, don't hesitate to reach out. We're friendly guys, we're passionate about pods, and we're here to help.